The Boostly podcast. We are in season 8, episode 14, fighting back against the coronavirus crisis. Helping the hospitality industry bounce back by giving proactive advice on how you can go and get more direct bookings and not have to rely on those OTAs doing so. Today, we're going to talk about how to get bookings in the future. I invited on Henry Bennett from You're Welcome. You're Welcome, if you haven't already checked it out, is a fantastic little tool, a fantastic business, a fantastic bit of kit that really helps with that in-guest experience, but also as well, it's a really cool tool to drive direct bookings. I'll let Henry explain more about it, but as you're checking out this episode, as you're listening in, you'll be glad to know that we've brought back the Quickfire questions. I've had a few people message me asking where they are. We've brought them back, and it's a coronavirus themed Quickfire questions. So you'll enjoy them there later on in the episode. Also as well, this podcast is sponsored by Hostfully. So thank you so much to our sponsor, Hostfully. They do digital guidebooks, and you can wow your guests with digital guidebooks that you can send to them before they even arrive. But also as well, it is sponsored by the bookdirect membership, the Boostly bookdirect membership. You can join now, just $9.99. You get for your membership all of your social media content sorted every single month by my in-house design team. 30 fresh pieces ready to go. You just copy, paste, amend, personalize for you and post it. You also get a listing on the Book Direct map, which is a listing site like no other. And also as well, you get access to tutorial videos that I've created showing you how to get set up on Facebook, how to get set up on Instagram, how to get set up on Pinterest, YouTube, LinkedIn, you name it. I also show you how to make the OTAs work for you and how to convert an OTA booking into a direct booking, plus so much more. You also get access to a private Facebook group, and it's a really nice low-cost membership group all around Book Direct. Please do go check it out, boostly.co.uk/BDM. Without further ado, let's get in with today's topic, today's interview. You're going to enjoy it. It's a ton of fun. Henry's a great guest, and I'm really excited to share him and his methods, tactics, and tips with you. So I'll see you on the other side. As always, any reviews, any feedback, let us know. Leave a review on iTunes. Go follow us on YouTube. Go follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, everywhere, and tell just one person about what we do.
I'm Henry. I'm the CEO of You're Welcome. I'm currently sitting in South Bank where I live with my family. I've got 3 young kids downstairs, so we're definitely struggling. So I'm hoping none of them are going to come in during this, so fingers crossed. So yeah, You're Welcome started 4 years ago. We're probably the most used guest app globally now. Basically, it's a subscription service. You sign up, we give you a free tablet. It's left out for your guests. And the tablet acts as a transactional and informational portal during the stay for the guests, where owners and managers can upsell their own services like late checkout or additional cleaning. And we have deals in place with a plethora of third-party services such as food delivery, tourist tickets, to enable owners and managers to make money as they go. But also, more pertinently for this particular webinar, we also offer the ability for you to market your own properties during the stay. So you can obviously put a banner on the tablets which can market your own portfolio to try and drive directly.
So let's kick on then with the first topic. Yep. A third of the world that is currently in lockdown. International travel is a bit of a standstill. The majority of people that are tuning into this will not be able to take bookings right now. We're sort of looking for long term. So what advice could you pass on, particularly when it coming into getting direct bookings for people that are looking for sort of the bookings in the medium to long term? What sort of advice can you share?
I think the overriding thing I would say is we work with over 1,500 property management companies globally. One of the things that always strikes us is that up until probably 6 months ago, maybe a year ago, really direct bookings and aggregating guest emails was a very secondary thought process in that, everyone's very reliant on OTAs. And one of the things that we often say to people is that really, if you look at the guest cycle of how it goes, right, the booking is done initially on the OTA. You're likely to acquire most of your customers there initially. And the OTAs own that space. We all know that. You try your best to try and get a percentage, but broadly, most people will come from an OTA. Then what happens is they come into your property. That is the point that you own your own customer. But the problem is a lot of property managers have moved to keyless entry and they don't contact guests, and they've seen it. It's almost like a positive. The less contact you have, the better, particularly VC-backed Airbnb management companies, a total hands-off service. And I think this is a huge mistake in that, if you don't own your own customer, have no contact, at what point can you turn them into potential direct booker if you don't at any point contact them? Because we all know at the end of the guest cycle, once they've left the property, the OTAs own that as well, because you want those reviews on there. So the biggest thing that I would say is that you've got to, as soon as the world wakes up again, you've got to make sure you reconnect with the guest. And basically you can do that whether you use our product or whether you phone them, text them, turn up, meet and greet them. I think a lot of people have fallen into this trap of, obviously there's a money saving value to having keyless entry, but you really lose a point of contact, which enables you to establish a connection. And any brand or any company that wants to drive direct sales has to have a connection. So I think the biggest advice that we can say is you've really got to look at the touch points you have with your customers that aren't on the OTA, and you've really got to push the value at that point. And that's probably the biggest advice that we can probably give at that point.
With hospitality now going to so many different ways, like with the Airbnb model, that people can have a spare house or a spare room that they can rent out, so it's sort of taking people away from hotels as much as what it was in the past. And all these new fancy gadgets and gizmos and things that have been created, I think that the whole core basis of what hospitality is, specifically if you look at bed and breakfast, for example, where the people are coming to stay in your house for a large majority of people, the reasons why they choose to come and stay with you and your business instead of, say, going to a travel lodge is that personalization. It's that hospitality feel, which is what makes it so important. And I feel that for a large majority of the time, people are sort of moving away from this, where now more than ever, you really want to be reminding your guests, your previous guests or potential future guests, the reason why they booked or the reason why they came to stay with you, the reason why they enjoyed it so much. And you have got the time now to tune or, reinterested in your guests. And there's people in here who are watching this live or on the replay that will have email lists of 1,000 people. There'll be people in here who've got an email list of just 2. Well, guess what? The smaller the list, the more of a benefit you've got now, where you can just email. There will be people watching this who will not have an email list. Now, is there any software over the years that you've tried, or any ones that you recommend, or the ones that you've seen that your members use? Is there any ones out there that people can sort of get started on if they haven't got a particular email list, or any tools or software out there?
There's 2 things that I wanted to sort of add to this, is that, just very quickly to touch on the point before first, is that your brand equity with a guest is 0 when they book through an OTA. The value that you drive during the stay enables you to then communicate thereafter. So I think in terms of building an email list, look, there's lots of software out there. The majority of people build their list in things like MailChimp. But the thing I think that's most important that most people forget is that it's the personalization. So that email that goes out, if you just constantly bombard people with 10% off bookdirect, it's not going to work. You should know, if you meet and greet these people, you can get a wealth of information that's way better than any hotel loyalty scheme. You can find out why they're staying. You can find out because they're staying because there's a golf course near you, or because, in my case, really interesting, right? So I live on the South Bank, but actually I found out, having had your welcome tablets in here, that a lot of people book with me because they want to go to the rugby. So they can stay in the centre of London. There's an easy service to Twickenham. So if you start getting that information, when you're sending out your emails, whether you're using MailChimp or whichever service that you're going to use, you can absolutely tailor what that email is in a personalized way, rather than just doing a mass mailer. So I think the biggest advice that I've got for everyone is that whether or not you have got no emails at all, and you're going to literally send a manual email through your Google account, that doesn't matter either, right? Because a lot of people look at MailChimp designed emails coming, it's straight delete, they get caught in spam filters. But the biggest thing that you can do is to make sure that email plays into something that you know about that guest that potentially no one else does. Because Airbnb were hitting them, Booking.com are hitting them, all these people are hitting them, but they're all just plain vanilla emails of places. Your ability is that you can send an email with actual value for them that's personalized to them. So I think the biggest thing I would say is that at the start, I wouldn't pay for any paid. You can do 2,000 emails on MailChimp, but I think the key thing is the content first.
When you're writing your content, when you're putting together an email or putting together a post on social media or whatever, you've got to think of it as twofold. Number one, what do you like to talk about? But also as well, what would they like to read? Whoever your customer avatar is, whoever like your ideal guest is, if, for example, where I am sat right now, which is the Granary, it's a farm stay property, it is massively kid friendly. That's who we target, is families. We wouldn't start sending emails out talking about the best places to go for a drink in Scarborough, because that's just not aligned, you know.
Yeah.
So you've got to make sure that you do that. But if you can craft an email together, and it doesn't have to be a lot, where you're just sort of talking about something that they want to open up, and you're right, don't sell all the time, then people will start to remember you much more than anything else that they've got in their inbox. Now, you touched upon hotel sort of incentives and hotel programs like loyalty programs and whatnot. I think that incentivizing is a massive tool that so many people don't use, particularly hospitality owners, when it comes to guests. What would your advice be of the sort of the number one bit of advice that you would pass on to hosts when it would encourage a guest to book direct?
So we see, out of the 1,500 plus property managers we work with, we see an absolute plethora of ways that people market to their guests, right? So typically what happens is, with our tablets, you put a banner on there, which basically is like, look at our other properties, or book direct and save money. Then what then happens is our property management companies set up a landing page on their website that is tailored only to people that are in their property at that point, which is really interesting, right? So we don't see this enough. So you've got a captive audience, you know they're in your property, they're enjoying their stay because they're interacting with the service. They come onto a web page that only people that are staying in. And we see some really interesting ways that people do this. And the most effective we've seen is gifting your friends a present. So the best one we've seen is someone set a landing page up saying, you're enjoying your stay. We've also got 60 other properties all over America or wherever it was. But put in the email addresses of 3 of your friends and we'll email them discounted stay at our property. And I was thinking that's actually really good, because if you're enjoying the stay and you're loving it, you're there with the kid, why wouldn't you do that? And it grows your email list, and also your friends are getting that. And it basically, the email will be your friend, insert their name, because obviously you've got that, or the property manager's got that, has recommended you might like this and here's 10% off. As soon as you personalize it to someone you know, that's a completely different kettle of fish than just you, Mark. So that's one of the best things that we've seen. And the second thing I'd say, which is really interesting, that I've always been surprised about since entering this industry, is property managers generally, the disregard for non-paying guests' contact details is so surprising. So, Mark, like me, you've probably been in a situation, you've been away with friends. There's always one person who ends up having to put their credit card down. You never want to be that person, right? That person might be your customer in terms of your merchant of record and your payment, but actually, all the other people that are staying there are equal customers. So how you aggregate and market to those other people is really important. If you don't meet and greet them, and if you don't have something like your welcome or whatever you do in there, you're missing out, basically. So for every customer that comes, particularly if you've got a big house, so couples stay there or family, multiple families, you need to make sure that you aggregate their contact details. It's super important, because you basically can exponentially grow your email list very quickly.
Everybody knows that when you get a booking come in from an OTA, whether it's like Airbnb or booking.com, then they don't give you their email address. And one of the biggest things that people have to do is get that data. You have to get that email, because when you've got that, you do have the ability then to do so much more and do these marketing. Again, if you're not doing this already, and if you're watching or listening to this, and if you're not currently creating a Google form, and when a booking comes in, the little automated email that goes out, if you're just saying, thank you so much for the booking, just please fill in this form, because it will make your check-in process a lot smoother. Then again, you should be doing that, because that's a great way of getting those email addresses. You know, you can even put a little consent form in there, and that's what you can definitely start to do. And
also, if you look at the retail world, right, if you look at it now, you go into a retail store, what they often say is, would you like a paper receipt or would you like it emailed, right, straight away? Or for example, they try and get you to sign up to get a discount to their cards. All they're doing is the same thing. You're in their premises, they've got a very short window for a captive audience, and they're doing exactly what you should be doing. And I think that's just, something that we need to see more and more of.
Let's move on to talking about how to get bookings in the future. Now, people are having to market their properties now, even if they can't take bookings right now. We're obviously going to be coming into what's called a new normal with this world. When it does settle down on the back of the coronavirus and all of these things, what would be your one bit of advice, let's say, that you would be giving to guests when they're looking to market their properties online from here on in? So sort of saying from April on in, what should people really be focusing on doing when they're going to be coming out and sort of marketing their properties again? Maybe differently from what they would have done.
One of the things that we see very regularly with your welcome is So we have access to patterns of search data for guests that are using our tablets. And one of the things that strikes me a lot is when we share that with our customers, a lot of them are quite surprised. And I'll give you a really good example. We've got a client that has quite a premium portfolio across Covent Garden and Soho in London. So for those people that aren't in London, that's super prime area in London. So there's a famous street, as everyone knows, called Oxford Street in London. And one of the things, when we drill down into the data, as an example, I think it was something like 75% of guests, maybe more, were searching something to do with Oxford Street. How far away is it? Where is it? What's on there? And one of the things we found really interesting about this was that on the OTA listings and their direct booking page, they make no mention of Oxford Street. They talk about theatres, they talk about culture, everything that you perceive, if you live in this town, of what you think a guest would come to stay. But actually, they all want Oxford Street, but yet they don't want to put it on their OTA listing stuff because they feel like it devalues property. But actually the reality is that is what they're looking for. And I think that's one of the things that we see quite a lot, is a disconnect between what guests search for in property and what the listing is portraying, which is quite interesting. So I think you've got to think really carefully about what is your audience and what actually do people come here for. You might think, if you're an individual owner, I've got the most amazing house in Zone 4 in London. They come here because, you know, architecturally it's great. There's loads of bespoke cafes. They're not. They're coming here to stay here because it's cheaper to stay there to get in central London. So basically talk about the transport links. Don't talk about how vibrant this area is. Talk about, you can come here, it's more economic to stay here, and you can get into town in 20 minutes. And that's your value add. I think when you come into it, I think the hype and the success of what we've seen with the short stay market, I think now is going to boil down to brass tacks. What are the value points that you offer your guests? And I think you have to be open about it. There's no point doing anything other than that. And I think that's one of the things that we constantly see between perception and reality, because we have the reality of what guests actually want, right? And I think that's one of the things I'd recommend.
In a nutshell, I think you always just assume, I mean, this is the biggest mistake any business owner can make, is just assume what the plus points of your business is to your customers' needs. And I think if anybody is struggling with that, and we speak about customer avatar all the time, and we speak about, you know, what do I guess really want, or what do I guess really like? But if you're just assuming it, then it's, particularly if you're going off reviews, if you're looking at reviews, then as we all know, reviews can, even though it says 5-star, people can just be doing that because they want it to be nice. They don't want to be, they don't want to be a dick, right? What I found is one of the best ways of doing this is to do a survey. You know, you can do a free survey with surveymonkey.com. And again, this would be a perfect time to run a survey and survey your previous guests to find out exactly what they do like. And make sure that you don't just ask fluffy questions. Don't ask woolly questions. Get really down to it. Like you say, in the brass tacks, like really think of 10 questions that you could ask your previous customers, your previous guests, what they like and what they don't like about you. And again, SurveyMonkey is free. Google Forms is free. And, you know, now more than ever, it's the perfect time to do this, because where are people going to go? They're going to be sat on their computers, they're going to be sat on their phones, an email pings through. You can incentivize it. So you can just say, hey, you know, we're asking these questions. It will really help us in the future. We'd really appreciate it. You know, we'll pick one person out of whoever fills it in, and they'll get Amazon vouchers or, you know, Disney Plus for a year, whatever you want to do. But it'd be a great time to do this. What I love about Your Welcome is it's very different, unlike anything else that you know, I've seen. Like, you give them a tablet, it's in the property, and people use it. What was the general idea behind this? I know you've spoken about this on other podcasts and other interviews that you've done, but I really would just like to find like the idea of where this came from and just sort of explain it in most simplistic of ways to the people that are watching, because there are going to be people who are watching this who will be looking at ways and means and how they can make their guest experience even better.
It's actually a fairly good story how Your Welcome came about. So myself and my business partner didn't work at all in this industry. We had just sold our previous business. Basically, we were just deciding what we were going to do next. And I convinced my wife, despite having 3 young kids at the time, that as Airbnb was really blowing up, we put a house on the market. So what happened was we got a lot of guests actually from America who love the outside of the building because it's 250 years old. But actually when they got inside the property, it was an absolute nightmare. It's an open fire. It's just a bit of a nightmare for people staying there. So basically, how being an entrepreneur by nature, rather than giving it to a property management company to deal with, what I decided to do was I recorded 7 videos of the 7 key things of how to answer any questions. So how do you make an open fire? How does a heating system work? And how to do it? And I left it on pretty crappy, I think it was an iPod Touch, that I just left out. And what happened was we went away and the call sort of stopped, and I came back and I looked at the iPod Touch and they hadn't cleared the search data. So I could see everything they'd searched just because I left out its iPod Touch. And they were looking for tourist tickets and stuff. And it sparked an idea in me that I felt if we offered enough value to property owners to install physical hardware and we had access to search data, what would happen is we could match a highly spendy audience, the guests, businesses locally that are looking to attract those customers that you can't really market. And that's where the idea came from. And actually it's evolved quite a lot. And I think one of the things really interesting coming out of this mess is that one of the things we've always thought is that when you look at the hotel industry, hotel industry's changed a lot, right? They're no longer solely focused on occupancy revenue. I think globally it represents about 65% of hotel revenue if you look across all the major hotel chains now. And what they've done is they're not looking for mass occupancy, they're looking for good occupancy. And good occupancy means being able to sell services on top of it. So hotels have a massive advantage because obviously they have people on site, they can push people to restaurants, etc. And I think one of the things that the short stay industry is going to see quite a lot is an emphasis on selling services. A couple of reasons why. First of all, you don't share service revenue with the underlying property owner. So typically the contracts are you sell occupancy revenue. And also you're not sharing it with the OTA, obviously, and you're also not sharing it with the PMSs that are increasingly charging percentages of. So if you generate £1 or dollar in service revenue, i.e. selling a late checkout or whatever it might be, that is equivalent to about $1.60 in occupancy revenue. So actually your business should be looking at this going, when we get a customer in our door, a guest, how can we maximize the revenue that we generate from this guest? And I think we're going to see this more and more. And from a buyer's perspective, obviously having a physical tablet of which you can sell services obviously helps that. And I think that's whether you use us or something else, I think you've really got to focus on how can you upgrade the guest stay? Can you sell an early check-in? Can you sell a late check-in? Can you sell additional cleaning? Can you sell equipment hire? Because when you look at it, you might only make an extra £15, $15 per stay. But as a percentage, once you take off all the OTA, PMS fees and stuff, that £15 is actually pretty material. And I think that's one of the biggest things that our product does is enables people to drive additional revenue streams, which I think is going to become a major part of this industry going forward.
And this is what I like about it, specifically with the tablet and the tool that you provide, is that when it comes to a rental property, and say you may only have one, there's only a certain amount of days or weeks that you can fill out in a year. There's only a set level of revenue, like you're saying, that you could potentially make from there. But by adding in these extras, whatever these extras may be, like late checkout, for example, it's one that you spoke about before, other little ways and means, but by adding in 15 euros, £15, every week, it adds up. And that could mean a massive difference for your 2021, 2020 profits to 2021 profit. What's the website? Where's the best place to go? What's the domain for Your Welcome?
So it's www.yourwelcome.com. I'll spell it because obviously it's grammatically incorrect. So it's yourwelcome.com. You're welcome. If you search Your Welcome tablet, it will come up top. It should do.
Yeah. All of the show notes, all of the links, they will be put together in a blog post that we're going to create on the back of this interview. So you can go to boosted.co.uk/podcast. You go there, look for season 8 at the very top. You will see Henry's face and you'll see You're Welcome. So you can click on there and find out everything. Now, this is something that I've not had so far in season 8 of the podcast, the Quickfire questions, but I wanted to bring it back and I wanted to give it a little bit of a coronavirus little twist and tweak to it. So number one, if you could be on lockdown or isolated with one celebrity, who would it be?
So I'm not massively into celebrity, but I was thinking about this beforehand. I think I'd probably go for Gina Miller. I don't know if everyone knows who she is, but she's someone that has campaigned very well to keep the government in check in the UK or over Brexit. We share a similar political belief and I'm a big fan.
A nice little one to pick her brains or just to have in your corner.
Yeah, I think pick her brains. Maybe my wife's listening.
All right. Okay. So if there is one movie or series that you've had on that to-do list, to watch list, Netflix or wherever, but you haven't had the best chance to do so. And obviously you've got kids, so you may not have had that chance to do so. But what has been on the to watch list on Netflix or Disney or Sky? Or
so Ozark. I don't know if people have been watching that on Netflix. I'm pretty into Ozark. I've seen the first series. There's now just a third one released. So I've got all of season 2 and season 3. And actually, I was pretty excited. I think we've got three customers in the place Ozark. People have watched it. They'll know what that means. So yeah,
I have seen that. I haven't checked it out yet, but Ozark is on the list. What is the one thing that you have missed since you've been on lockdown? So it could be a trip to a coffee shop. It could be just, walking in general. The one main thing that you have missed the most since being down on lockdown?
Freedom. I think for me, I love getting out with the kids, going on bike rides and stuff. And I think that, I think going on a long bike ride with the kids, we're missing massively. Obviously, in theory, you can go for an hour's exercise, but it's pretty challenging trying to explain to your 5-year-old that, look, if you see a person, you've got to be, 2 meters apart, because it's the reverse of what you're brought up to do. If you see someone, you're meant to cross the road, right? So you're almost like having to teach them a social change. I think it's horrendous, right?
It's like doing exercise, but without being judged for doing it. Totally. I've never seen so many people just judging people while they are exercising. It's insane. But yeah, I totally get that. Being able to leave, and kids are just so sociable as it is. My 4-year-old asks everybody what their name is, how are they and stuff. So it's like one of them. It's a bit of a mad time. What has been your best purchase under £100 in the past 6 months?
It's actually been the last 2 weeks. So this is obviously quite amusing and pertinent for this time. So it's definitely toilet roll. So I can tell you, in my house, my kids were not happy about reverting to kitchen roll in the toilet. So when I found some kitchen roll, let me tell you, it was nowhere near £100, but I probably would have paid £100 at that point.
I like that. Okay, so do you have a favorite podcast or a YouTube channel that you go to?
I've got a couple, but my tastes are either high or low. So probably my favourite podcast, probably the Guardian Politics podcast, or it's a number which I won't go into of 80s football podcasts. So either I'm up or down, depending on where we're sitting.
Football, it's a mad one. I'm a big Liverpool fan, but I haven't really thought about football probably in the last couple of weeks.
Today, actually, it was my son's 5th birthday on Sunday, and the present didn't turn up, but his first QPR kit turned up today, which he's pretty excited about.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to when all of this is over and you've got a little release, like sport, be a big release, and just to be able to get back a bit of normality, get football back, however or whatever football looks like when this all does come back. And okay, final one, and it's a question that I ask everybody, every guest. You could give one bit of advice to a hospitality owner watching this right now, especially when it comes to boosting their direct bookings. What would be that one bit?
The biggest advice is, any business that does not own their own customers ultimately is in a perilous position. And we've seen this as what has happened in this particular horrendous incident. The biggest advice I can give you is you have to understand, all the OTAs are acquisition channels. That's all they are, right? You get a booking, but that booking is an acquisition, and it's up to you what you do after that acquisition. Good businesses turn that acquisition into multiple purchases. Bad businesses just let that go and just continue to rely on that one-time OTA acquisition channel. So the biggest thing is, look at your business and just think, how can I turn this OTA booking into either a future direct booking or an advocate? They're the two things you should look to do. And actually, those two things should be more important than a review, thinking about review on the OTA site. Because once you've got 500 5-star reviews, at that point, you really start thinking past that. People are going to book after you see volume of good reviews, and start thinking about how do you turn that into a future direct booking.
Any hospitality host, owner, property manager has seen from the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, is you cannot build your house on someone else's land. Airbnb have proved it. Booking.com have proved it, of how they've treated hosts. So you've got to, if your one mission will be for the rest of 2020 is figure out how you're going to get an increase in your direct bookings. We have hosts watching this who have 100% direct bookings. They are lucky they don't have to rely on OTAs, but we have people who watch and listen to this that rely heavily, 90% plus, on third parties to bring in their bookings. So if you do one thing, start building your email list, start building your direct bookings, get a better website. And if this happens again, whatever this is, then hopefully you'll be protected because you'll have that guest, you'll have that direct booking. Henry, really, really appreciate it coming onto this. YourWelcome.com, or just Google Your Welcome tablet. Please do go check it out. It is a fantastic service. It is a fantastic idea. And I know there are a lot of people in the Boostly world use Your Welcome. I know there are a lot of people in the hospitality community that use them, and the other channels that in the groups that I'm in, I know they use them. And it is one of those things that you can just simply do to increase your guest experience that will have massive dividends in the future, as in direct bookings or extra revenue. So do check them out. And thank you everybody for tuning in. Please do me one massive favor before you go. Tell a friend. So to share this video, whether it's live or on the replay, share it with friends, send it in an email, share it on your social media, share it in Facebook groups, LinkedIn, wherever you are. Just tell one person about it. Tell them about we're doing live videos every night in April to help the hospitality industry bounce back from the coronavirus. And if you are listening to this on the podcast, I need you to do me one favor. Go to where you listen to your podcasts and subscribe and then leave a review. So rate and review it, because when you do, I can always see that the viewing figures go up and up, and we go up and up in the chart. We are filtering around the top 30 in the UK in the management podcast, random category to be in, but whenever we get reviews, we go higher up that list. So please do that for me. And we'll be back tomorrow, 2nd of April, for another live video. Until then, thank you so much for everybody for tuning in, and I'll see you on the other side.